Good morning. I'm Cort Heumiller from the Museum of Modern Art. I'm the studio production manager and imaging visual resources. I want to, we're all set.
You're all set?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to thank everyone for coming. Every imaging department has to deal with, have to have some kind of system of handling requests. In the past, this has been everything from handwritten forms, post-it notes, emails, tons and tons of emails, phone calls, people literally knocking on the door, object in hand, saying, "Hey, can you photograph this?" Who here's gotten that before? With the growing multitude of needs supplying to multiple departments, and with digital allowing us to increase our throughput, we've kind of been looking for new systems for a while. And there are new systems out there built, maybe not always necessarily for imaging, but for other other uses. So we've conveyed a group of 4 different imaging departments with 4 solutions, ranging from the simple that one person can basically push out on their own to complex ones that require IT infrastructure and consultants and everything else. So we have Dan Dennehy from MIA, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, Cort from the Portland Art Museum, Justyna Badach from Philadelphia Museum of Art, and myself. We're going to start with Dan Dennehy from MIA.
My handheld mic skills are a little rusty, so let me know if you can't hear me. Okay, so anybody who knows me knows I like to take the easy way out. So when it came to finding a request form, I just Googled it. And any of you can do this. So let's see. So first I'm going to give you a little background. The Visual Resources Department at MIA is comprised of 3 photographers and a digital production specialist. We create, manage, and distribute an expanding range of digital content, including still photography, video, computational imaging. We're a high-volume studio. And so a request process is really important for us to keep it all on the rails. We do more than collection photography. We do a wide spectrum of events and portraits and other things as well. So we're on our 3rd digital request form. Over the past 15 years, when I started, there wasn't even a request process, actually. But over the last 15 years, we've embraced a kind of do-it-yourself approach, leveraging commonly available tools without relying on internal IT support. And our current process, based on Google Forms, is pretty simple and effective, and anyone with a Google account can build one themselves. So I'll just kind of briefly run through how we got where we are today. So back in 2005, we published our very first digital form using Microsoft Excel. Now, at the time, most of the staff printed the Excel form and filled it out by hand and delivered it by interoffice mail. And by 2010, we had convinced many staff that the form could be filled out within Excel and emailed to the photo studio. So we were on the precipice of a paperless world. And yet we were still managing a hybrid mess of printouts and emails and attachments, along with the traditional post-it notes, voicemails, drop-ins, and you can imagine what else. So in 2010, MIA embraced the Google Suite, and by late 2010, we had ported our Excel form into Google Forms. And we embraced page branching, and we collected lots of data because we could. And for the first time, all of our team members could actually see the requests in one place in real time as they came in, which was a big improvement. So next we assembled a group of test users from across the organization. And after a month of testing, we folded in all the feedback, and we went live at a staff meeting. And although many people embraced the new form, not everybody was thrilled about the fact that we were making everybody use the form. And to get a job done, you had to fill out the form. So a little tough love there. And over the next few years, our form actually became widely adapted, and other departments copied it. It became clear, though, that we kind of went a little crazy with the tool. And we were collecting lots of data, like I said, because we could. But all the extensive page branching and granular fields created kind of a tedious, even disorienting experience. And meanwhile, the VR team was looking at 100 fields on a spreadsheet. So even though our request information was now centralized, searching, sorting, and sifting through was really no fun at all. And in trying to account for everything, we had overthought our way into a bad user experience. So fast forward to 2018, and Google itself has made a lot of improvements to the form. The build process has been streamlined and very easy to do, and the presentation is better also. And on the back end, automatic analysis and filter views promise to put us in control of the data. So the improvements to the tool were pretty good, but what really changed in our perspective resulted in a better form where we kind of like humanized the language. So instead of asking just like date, time, what is this, we used a more friendly voice, and we kind of got rid of the technical jargon, and we framed questions like how can we help, and what is this for, and when is it needed. And we kept it short and sweet. We still liked the page branching, but instead of 26 sections, we now had only 10. And at the back end, the spreadsheet was better than ever because we were now capturing 35 fields down to 100. Because you understand, people fill out the form, and all that data gets ported into a spreadsheet that we look at our morning meetings. So we created a simple pick list. You can see here, you can assign it to the request owner, and then this powers filter views. So if I want to see everything that Anna's doing this week, I can just filter it down like that. And then it cleanly captures metadata that we use for cataloging our assets in the DAM. So it makes it nice and easy. So what comes next? We continue to improve the forum in large and small ways. For example, it came to our attention that users didn't really have any idea how many request forms we were getting and why things would take like a week or two to accomplish. So we just quickly added some friendly language at the top of the form to kind of explain that. And in the long haul, we're now working on improved dashboards for visualizing our request data and the DAM's metrics. So I encourage you to check it out. If anybody uses the Google Suite, this is a very easy tool to use. There's even videos to show you how to do it. So. Drop the mic. Take that off?
Yeah, just
Thanks, Dan. That was exciting. All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Ben Cort. I'm the collections and exhibitions photographer at the Portland Art Museum. A little bit of background about our studio. We started our studio in 2011. Previous to this, we didn't have any in-house digitization, so we really had the opportunity to start from the ground up. Originally, it was a pretty tight scope of work. We had a little bit of curatorial requests, but we were basically funded by IMLS and NEH grants from the start. We're a really small staff. We've got one collections information manager who's also our department head. We've got a photographer who's me, and we've got our digital asset manager. So after the grants were successfully completed in 2015-16, the studio began to transition to meet the larger goals of the museum's digitization needs. We'd been transitioning and getting more requests as people found out that we were doing in-house photography more and more, and we needed to figure out what we were doing with that. We had implemented a form in about 2013 that was sort of the traditional Excel Word document form. You print it out, you fill it out, get it to us somehow. We were getting these from email, passed in the hallways, bird messengers, every possible way to get a form to someone, it was there. We were getting a pretty good paper pile. We didn't have a good way to track what we were doing. Didn't have a way to sort of organize or collate or figure out what was priority. We were lucky to get any information at all on these requests. A lot of times it was a curator's name and a group in MIMSI, which is our CMS. Maybe it had a number of objects on it. Maybe it had a due date. Maybe they told us why they wanted it. We were lucky to get a couple of fields, if one of these forms at all. So we knew it was time to implement a better request system. So what do we need to figure out? We needed it to be easy to use and easy to manage. Again, super small teams administering this. We didn't have the ability to have a lot of people working on this. It needed to be pretty easy. It needed to be pretty lightweight. It needed to be low cost. Again, it's sort of an internal tool. We're museum folk. Free's always better. So that was pretty high on the priority list. Wanted to be collaborative. We knew that it needed to be something that worked for a whole team. Ideally, we'd all be able to jump in it at once. Something that worked for one person and sort of caused them to silo themselves off that wasn't going to work for us. And we knew it needed to be versatile. We knew that we'd seen the department grow over the past 4 years. We knew that we were going to continue to grow. We needed whatever tool we decided to get needed to grow with us as we continued to expand. So we went with Trello, which is a pretty interesting tool. Ticks all the boxes. It's free. It's really easy to use. It's really easy to implement. You sort of just set up an account and go. It supports multiple users in the same sandbox. So much like the Google Suite and your group editing a Excel document, you can all be in the same space. You can all be working back and forth. You can ping each other. You can tag each other. You can notify each other. And it's really adaptable and expandable. It's a pretty lightweight interface, so it's really adaptable to what you need to do. It's really simple to sort of add new boards, add new workflows, and be straightforward. And also credit to our previous DAMS manager. She was using this for some personal project management, and we were able to adapt it without having to do a ton of looking around for stuff. So we've got the tool. How do we use it? We needed to implement it somehow. We needed to figure out how we wanted to receive requests. We knew we didn't really want to be manually inputting all this stuff. We knew we needed to be a little more organized than that. The Trello API or system uses lists with cards on them, so it's pretty easy to visually organize it, but how do you get the data onto it? And we knew we needed to figure out what information needed to be with a request. So who it's from, what it's for, basically the who, what, where, when, why, and how of a request, What are the objects? Are there handling concerns? Can it be moved? Does it need to be assembled? Are there views you need of it? Is it conservation? Basically, the litany of things, and then any tags you wanted to include on it. So again, in trying to be pretty environmentally friendly and reduce the pile of paper on everyone's desks, we decided to use a email to board feature that Trello has built in. It's easy and intuitive. It's really easy to set up. There's very little training required. The hardest thing we had to figure out telling people was the email address that we had to set up for it. It's very simple buy-in. It's not a form we have to go fill out. It's curators have to just type in an email and say, we want this. And it fits our scope. Again, we don't have the ability to go around and train everyone 100 times about how to send emails or how to fill out forms or using a login system. So this was really nice. It was easy to sort of go, all right, here it is. Let's do this. There is a little bit of automation we wanted to do. Trello's got a pretty good API, but I'm not a programmer, and we don't have any in-house development resources. So we have to rely on existing functionality and existing plugins to make this all work for us. Luckily, there are some really straightforward and simple tools to do this. One of them is Butler. We've started using that a fair bit. It is free. You can pay and have more features, but I'm not sure that they're super useful yet. It's easy to program. I've got program in quotes. It's basically a written language. You sort of type out what you want it to do, and it can basically do it. I've got an example on the side of the screen there of what one of the scripts we're using it for. But it addresses most of the problems that Trello can't solve on its own. So what we're using it for in this instance is when we add a card to our list, it appends a checklist so that we can go through in our workflow. It appends some tags, and it appends a due date. So if the requester doesn't submit a due date automatically when they fill out the request, we've got a automatic way of knowing that it's got to be checked up on and followed up with. So here's an example of what our requests look like once they hit our Trello boards. The smaller one is when you see the sort of the 10,000-foot view of the board, and the larger view is the expanded. You can see on there it's got titles and tags, and there's a description that you can fill out as you're doing the email. The checklist is what we use to follow our request through our workflow. We're using the Butler tool to sort of make the information out of the email very concise and easy to read. It's easy and consistent and visually consistent with very little input on our end. Because it is an email, so it's just free text, there's definitely the opportunity for it to be visually inconsistent, but the information that we've been getting has been pretty good so far, and it's really easy to make the request visually cohesive with really little effort on my end. And again, it is just me doing this. We don't have to have our morning meeting with our 15 photographers to figure out who's going to do what. So again, I think a lot of this is finding the system that works for your institution's level of need. And it's important that it relays the core information. So as long as we get our MIMSI group, our curators' names, and a due date or who it's for, that's enough for us to go on, and then if need be, reach out. But the important thing of getting it all in one place, collated, organized, is achieved. So this is what we're using actively at PAM for our boards. The left side of the screen is our photography board. So sneak around a point, that's easier. Whoa, that is some resolution. Sick. All right, so this is the photography board. Pending requests land here, and then it's a progressive workflow. So as tasks are completed, the cards, these little individual things, are moved to different buckets, and each of our team members has our eye on different buckets, so it's really easy for us to say, all right, it's moving over to scheduled, and then it's going to go to in progress, and it's going to jump onto our processing board where it's got to be attached to our DAM, and then it's going to be attached to MIMSI. So it's really easy for all of us to sort of see what the other people are doing, where things have to go, what's in the queue. It's a really nice visual task management system for us. So success, how does the text look? Is that even readable? Oh, that's good. It's not great, but it's good. Okay, so success. We've had a really high adoption rate. Because it's email-based, a lot of people are using it. It's really easy. It's just an email address that we send out. So a lot of people are using it, and it's really nice on that end. It's really easy to track a request through the workflow. Like you just saw, it's very visual. It's very sort of A to B to C to D to finished. One of the downsides and things we're working on is implementing a sort of reactive request. Right now, there's no way for the requester to get feedback about where their request is in process. Anything that they would need to know, I'm emailing them saying, all right, your request has been scheduled for this day. Our DAMS manager, Rachel, is emailing people to say, your request has been processed and is ready in the DAM. It would be really nice to have action items as those cards are moved to new lists to send out an email to the requester and say, automatically, your request is at this stage. Again, we're a small department. We don't get a lot of people badgering us, which is really nice, but it would be nice to take that step to be more proactive with sharing where things are. It's really simple, adaptable, and it fit our workflow. We didn't have to change the way we worked at all when we implemented this system. It was another layer we had to deal with, but it wasn't like we're having to change how we worked to make this tool operate well. So yeah, other than that, it's been a really exciting experiment. We're looking forward to working more with this tool and getting more in depth with it. So thank you so much. And I will bring it up to Justyna.
The Philadelphia Museum of Art has approximately 260,000 objects spread across 3 buildings. We have currently 3 studios in those 3 buildings, plus a temporary or flexible space, shooting space that is housed in our Works on Paper storage that's used by grant photographers. We also have several historic houses, sculpture grounds. So we have sort of a lot of stuff spread over a vast area. We have currently 3 studio photographers and 1 grant photographer. The grant photographer staff can swell up to 7 depending on what is going on. So we can go from being rather small, which we are right now because of a capital campaign, to being fairly large. So I joined the studio in 2014 after 20 years in academia. And interestingly enough, my first job out of college was working for a production lab that produced trade booth displays, and we did everything from the photography all the way to actually the 3-dimensional space. And it was kind of a nutty place where the boss every day would be running around screaming, "I hate people." so just so you know, production has these sort of inherent quirks to it. So when I came in, the photography studio, which had originally been photography and rights and reproductions, had been restructured. Rights and reproductions had been split off, and the photography studio was left to sort of their own device. The rights and reproductions team, from what I gather before, had done the order system, although from what I was told, the order system had been broken for a number of years. I know that when I started, I pulled open the drawer of my desk and found a stack of emails about this high, and rather than look at them, I just threw them out. Because clearly nobody had looked at these. The person who sat at that desk had been gone for at least 3 months, so I figured if nobody had looked at them in those 3 months, I didn't need to know what was there. So things were being done via email, like a lot what was said here. People would just drop in or send direct emails. There was a lot of redundancy, so things would come back for photography 2 months after they had been photographed because somebody had no idea that there was new photography. So there was a lot of kind of mass confusion. So the first task that I was tasked with was to create an ordering system that actually worked, and no budget. So luckily at that time, the PMA had decided on developing an internal communication system, their intranet, and they were going to use SharePoint for that. And basically each department has a homepage. It's sort of like a website for the internal use. Our systems administrator, Rita Colony, who's really wonderful, basically sat down with me and we talked about developing an ordering system, and that our page would become, not only would the home page for the photo studio be the beta page for the system, but then also creating this ordering system would be a way for her to test the system overall and things that are sort of possible with that. So the system needed to be centralized, it needed to be easy to use, it needed to be accessible to all constituents within the museum. And it needed to work with the existing systems, which is primarily TMS within the museum. So as I said, we were kind of a model of redundancy and inefficiency. There was a lot of redos. There were objects that people would kind of come down and say, "Oh my God, is this thing here? Did it come down here?" People would bring things down in baskets. So I think one of the first things that was done was the registrar basically restructured how objects are sent to the studio. So we use these COLs or change of location forms, which are basically can only be done by the curatorial staff or the registrar. Before that, I think it was much more open. And so that system was clamped down. Those COLs go directly to the art handlers. The art handlers have to log anytime they move an object into TMS. So the location is logged in and when the object was moved. So that helped a lot. Some of the key issues that we had was the poor tracking of object moves. There was also a general lack of knowledge about imaging by staff. And so we have a wide range of staff. We have staff who are really young and tech savvy, and then we have staff who are close to retirement and basically are just using cell phones. That's the sort of the high end of their technology. And so it was really how do we bring everybody up to the same level, or at least get a basic understanding of how images work and what you would need to do certain things. And there was also a lack of communications between departments. So for example, our publication department and the photo studio were not speaking to each other. And so it's kind of hard to figure out when things are due when nobody wants to talk to the other person. So once we got the change of location forms structured, the next step was to create some kind of easy to understand system for image ranking. And we did that in TMS. And basically our archivist helped us with this. So basically images are assigned a rank of 1 to 5. So that's like a system that anybody can understand. 1 being this is the newest file, it's a digital file, it's high res, it's ready to go for publication. 5 is like this should never see the light of day of anybody outside of conservation or curatorial. So that might be black and white photographs that were scanned or pictures of the collector holding up their dress right before they gave it to us, things like we don't want the public to see. So we basically created a photo order report around that. And so that has the basic fields that we as the photo studio, things that we need to know, and also the curatorial assistant needs to know before they put in the photo order. So it has the object number, which we obviously need. It has whether or not the object has an image, because oftentimes objects don't have any images. It has the artist's name, the size, the rank, the file information. So it actually will tell you, how many megabytes is the file, whether it's 16-bit or 8-bit. And it also has the object location, because like I said, we have 3 buildings and objects are spread all over the place, and sometimes a painting is supposed to be in the main building, but it's actually in our off-site storage, and we would need to know that if we're scheduling anything. So basically, once we did that, I went around and did a kind of a brief educational session with each department that would be using our system to educate them about file formats, et cetera. And basically mandated that everybody start to use this. And this is easy. They just, as soon as they have an object package for photography, they just pump it out as a photo order report and attach it. So you have a workflow. Now what? So workflows are not very useful if nobody knows about them. So I think staff education is really important. One of the things that we did with our system was to create a beta trial period and to try it out. So we basically shared our initial order workflow with Works on Paper, because they're our largest department. They tend to order things in the hundreds at a time. So we have orders that for anywhere from 50 to 400 objects at a time coming in from them. And so we basically let them try out our system for about 30 days and get feedback from them to see how things are going, and modified the forms as we went. Then in March 2015, which is about 6 months after I started, we rolled out the entire system via an all-staff meeting to the entire museum, and then again did individual sessions with each department during their monthly or weekly meeting, training them how to use the system. And the system is really crybaby proof. I mean, so I'm Florida, Broward County, listen up. No recounts necessary. So basically, once we went through and explained what the system is, where you can find it, we have a really robust fellowship program at the museum, and many of the fellows that come in are able to just use the form without even having received any training. If I can just direct them to where it is on the web, on our interweb, they're able to go in and use it. So during that time, we continued to improve the workflows and get feedback. And I have to say that that's something that's an ongoing thing. So as we improve workflows throughout the museum and other departments improve their workflows, we're also modifying and changing and adding things. So it's not something like, okay, we're done. We could all sit back and drink coffee. So here's a view of the main photo studio tab, and this is how it looks on the intranet. Each of these, and so we're visual people, so we basically created tabs that correspond to where stuff might be. So there's a tab for the main building, studio, there's a main for the Perlman studio, we have sites, which would be things that might be outside. We have something in the range between 50 and 80 galleries in the museum that we photograph on a regular basis, and we have exhibitions, which could be loan objects from other museums, and then we have permanent collection rotations that happen regularly. And those are billed differently. We also do internal billing, I should mention. So we have PC rotations, which are permanent collection rotations, and exhibitions, which are the larger shows. We have events, which we photograph between 9 and 5, and then we also have events after 5, which my studio doesn't schedule, but we've coordinated with the library that a form is put on there so that the library can keep track of when images are coming in to the studio. We also have pricing information, turnaround times, how many objects it can send down. So like somebody with a, sculptor curator shouldn't assume that they can send down 600 sculptures. We just can't handle that many in our studio, so we kind of limit based on what we can handle in terms of storage in the space at one time. So this is the actual order form. So if you click on the main building studio, and I'm going to just come around here because I can't see anything on there. So you guys can't see anything either. So basically what it has is it has a drop-down menu of where the objects are. So basically here it would tell me whether it's in the gallery or like also the department. So we have, Bill, what is it, like 15 curatorial departments or? Yeah, something like that. So curatorial department, or whether it's development, or whether it's from the registrar, we basically serve the entire museum. The only department I think we haven't served is housekeeping. So there's a drop-down menu for which department it's coming from. There's the artist name, the object number, the title, the charge line, because we have specific charge lines that are assigned for this. There's a due date. There's a little box that tells you, is this a rush, which means that you need it in less time, and then in that case you have to tell me the specific date. It tells me whether you need it for a website, for publication, for social media, or something else. Then it tells me whether it's a newly accessioned object or collection object, because we have special charge lines for newly accessioned objects. So everything that comes in that's newly accessioned, we basically, that's sort of prioritized to be photographed. And then special instructions. And then down here is an area for attachments. And that's where that TMS photography order form would be attached, along with any other special instructions. So this is the back end, and basically what we have, actually, let's see here, this is the back end. So basically what we have here is, you could see so this is our forms that are actually in here. So we have 3D order form. So for objects that are three-dimensional, there's actually a model that shows you which view you would like, and you just basically check it off and attach it. We're asking for freelance events form. So basically, what is the event? Who's the person who's ordered it? What time is it? How is it being paid for? What are the shots they're supposed to get? Any people that are important that are going to be photographed, so that metadata can be added later on. We also have a publications project form that we do that basically for things that have 200 or 300 objects that are going to need to be photographed within 6 to a year's time, that is scheduled and kept track of so that we don't delay those projects. So those are all found on our intranet page as well. This is the back end. So every person who orders photography can then go into this section right here. It says My Photo Orders, and they could see all the photo orders that they have. And then when they click on the photo order, it tells them, is it pending? Is it scheduled? Is it closed? And they can amend, make changes, or add additional forms anytime to these orders. So this is something that's changeable. And my guys also have access to this. So this is, again, the back end. This is what I would see in terms of the production view. So I have orders that come in, and this is the My Photography orders. So you could see here, this person has a lot of orders. That's me, because I also put in orders for exhibitions. So this is the photographer view. The photographers can click on their name, and basically all of their orders will come up. They could do it chronologically. There's ways for them to select the views that they want and see only their orders, or they can see everybody else's orders in the queue. I see everybody's orders, and I think for me as a visual person, sometimes seeing things in a list like this is not really helpful. I like to see things on a calendar. But basically, they're able to then go in, click open on their order, see the TMS list that's there printed out if they want to, or just have a digital copy. And then once they're done, they go in and close out the order. The sort of workhorse of the entire thing is the email system, and this is where Rita was tremendously helpful. The ordering system would be not that great without this. So when an order comes in, I get an automated email telling me there's a pending order and the order number. If it's a rush, it tells me this is a rush order, so then I could look at it more quickly. I basically open it up when I schedule it. An email is automatically sent to the person who placed the order saying, your order has been scheduled for January 22nd. Please send a change of location form to the art handlers. And it also sends an email to the photographer that's been assigned to that order. So that photographer knows that there is an order in their queue that's going to be at this date. The order is then automatically placed onto a calendar so that all my photographers can see. And then when the order is closed out, it again sends an email to the requester saying, your order is finished. Please let the art handlers know that your objects need to be moved back to storage. And it also sends an email to our archivist, who is in another building, and so that she knows that there are images that are going to be in her folder coming up. And also the library who distributes our images, they know that there's new assets available. Sorry, there's a lot of workflows here. So this is the work calendar. This is, and so basically things are scheduled based on how long they take. They're color coordinated. This is really, for me, I don't find my photographers use this as much, but it's helpful for me to see what's going on for the month, whether or not we can squeeze last minute rushes in, which we oftentimes have. And it's just sort of easy to have a visual sense of what is going on for the month. We're usually planning things 3 months out. So when I first started there, we had a backlog of about 4 years of new acquisitions. We've gotten through that. We're now on time. All the new acquisitions are shot. But we are a really busy studio. And so while our turnaround time is generally supposed to be 8 weeks, if we're behind, I send an all-staff email out saying, like, we're behind. If you have an emergency photo order, please submit it now. Otherwise, we won't be able to schedule anything until January, right? And people are pretty good about complying with it. The other portion of our workflow is that all of our images go through approval by the curator or by the requester. So we work a lot with living artists, and those images all have to be approved before we could send them out because of rights issues and branding, et cetera. Same thing we work a lot with marketing, so that's the same thing, and for curatorial. So we don't currently have a DAMS system. What I do is I maintain a mini DAMS in my department called Image Relay. It's pretty cheap. We share it with graphic design and the library. And basically what that enables us to do is to upload images in there and then pump out either a view-only link, which we can send to a curator saying, hey, your order, ooh, is it back on? Yes. Okay. Your order, we've shot this. Are these views okay? We can get them when they're on the train going to New York. So a lot of times they're like, I'm busy. I won't be able to. And I'm like, no, you'll be able to. We're with you wherever you go. So they can look at the order and then basically approve it. And then we can send out rapid links. So if somebody needs images the same day, this same system lets us send a link with a downloadable JPEG, TIFFs, et cetera. So I'm just going to skip forward because the other thing that's nice about this system is that I could pump out to spreadsheets. I know that we're at MCN, but I'm going to confess that I really don't like spreadsheets. And so some of this thing of managing workflows through spreadsheets would not work for me, but I do have to do charge lines and also track. And so this system enables me to output to spreadsheets pretty quickly. And it also has been great in that we were able to work with Phase 1 to use our TMS photo reports to ingest metadata back into the EXIF files. So we use those reports that are submitted with our orders. They're converted to an Excel spreadsheet, and then Phase 1 has done some scripting for us, which enables us to take specific information, artists, media, date, and basically ingest that back into the files in Capture One, which helps departments like marketing and publications, when they need specific information about the file, to just go into Bridge and find that. And so you could see here, basically, it's pulling that data in and then places it back into the EXIF field. Sorry if I talk too fast.
Okay, technically this is when we're supposed to be getting into Q&A, so I'm going to talk extremely quick. As Justyna kind of said, the idea of rapid improvement or repetitive, iterative improvement, trying to make it better. Museum of Modern Art has over 200,000 objects in their collection. The Department of Imaging and Visual Resources has 4 photographers split over 2 studios that are separated by the East River. We've got a digital asset management coordinator, a dedicated department preparator, art handler, a production and licensing assistant, and 2 managers. We accept requests from 6 curatorial departments, library and archives, exhibitions, publications, MoMA's own retail department, as well as our external licensing partners. In addition to this, we do internal billing between different departments and billing to our licensing agents. So where were we? Previously, we had a report that could be generated from TMS. Somebody who wanted to request images could have an object package. They could run a report. It would generate this form as an RTF document. It worked decently, but it had a few issues. Breaking up jobs between multiple photographers became difficult. Additionally, if somebody opened it in the wrong version of Word or saved it as the wrong format, the formatting went haywire and became almost illegible. And also billing was a very manual task of grabbing these, putting them into Excel, grabbing each line, putting it into Excel documents. In early 2016, IVR began a survey of alternatives. Other systems that were looked for were KissFlow, Workhorse, Basecamp, Trello, Gooby. Jira was settled on, influenced largely by the fact that the Metropolitan Museum of Art had begun using it. Additionally, MoMA's own IT department was interested in possibly using it for other uses. So they were interested as potential learning case. It was initially installed by David Garfinkel of MoMA's IT at the time in late 2016 and early 2017. So what do we get with Jira? We have Active Directory integration. What does that mean? It means that it knows who you are and what your email is. So we can have dedicated email integration, and that's very configurable. We have TMS and DAM integration. What does that mean? That means that putting in this one field, we can pull all that information automatically. There's a lovely little Jira plugin called nfeed. It allows you to pull from a database. Awesome. Takes a little technical expertise, but very useful. We have some automation and logic control where we can do if-then statements based on certain criteria. We have flexibility to break up jobs because every object becomes its own issue. Therefore, I can easily say, this is a tabletop setup, so I'm going to send it to this photographer. This needs to be on the wall. I can send it to that photographer in that studio. We have status and due date tracking. We have logging of data about projects and reporting. We can also very easily export. We can do a quick filter on all the objects that were for this licensing agent in the past few months that have not been closed. Create that a CSV spreadsheet, and that becomes our invoice to bill that licensing agent or that other department. And then we can do bulk edits if we need. We have 3 public request types that people can use on the customer portal. They can do an object photo request. I need an object of this image or an image of this object or multiple images. We can do exhibition photo requests of there's this exhibition coming up and we will need installation photography, exhibition photography. And also we have a type for if a department hires an outside photographer to document an event, getting that into the DAM. Jen can attest to what a pain that has been trying to herd those cats, and hopefully now there's a nice form that they can capture the pertinent data about it that makes it easier for Jen to work with archives and TMS to create the proper records to get those into the DAM. Additionally, we have 2 behind-the-scenes types of issue types that are only inside the Jira service desk that only we usually those in IVRC. One of those is billing tickets, and the other is Jira feature request, where we can create Jira issues about features that we want to add to Jira. Okay, so when we talk about object photo requests, this is what somebody sees. We tried to make the form as simple as possible because we wanted adoption to happen. Basically, because of Active Directory, it knows who you are. So it says you're raising the request on the behalf of Cort Heumiller. I can also say I want to raise it on the behalf of Jen, or if a curatorial assistant wants to raise it on behalf of a curator, you can do that. You put in the object number, and that's really all you have to put in. There's additional fields of if you want to say, I want 5 views of this, if you want to say any special instructions. Down at the bottom, there's one extra field that says, is this for publication, retail, exhibition, or licensing? Basically, is this a billable request? And if it is, then a few more fields appear, and then you can tell us what project it is and which department it will be billed to. That is also the only way that you can put a due date on something. If you're not paying us, we'll do it when we get to it. So our workflow initially, when we rolled it out, was very simple and straightforward. You created a ticket, you worked on it, and it was done. And it worked all right, but again, the idea of iteration, getting better. We reached out, we worked with some Jira consultants, and we came up with a little more granular of a workflow. This allows us to do some automations at each step and do some specific handoffs. So when we create an issue, we can do a few things. We automatically apply some default roles. I am always the production manager for pretty much anything that comes through IVR, so my name gets added as a so any step that needs my attention will come to me. We have one dedicated preparator in the department, so 95% of the things that come through the department, he's going to be the preparator, so we automatically add him. We can copy some fields to make searching a little easier. We automatically assign the task on creation to the production manager, because I'm going to be the person who needs to see it and say, oh, this looks like a tabletop setup, and I think that this photographer will be able to do it. And if it's billable, on the right-hand side is an email that will get sent if it's a new project that hasn't been done before. Hey, we're going to need some account strings and et cetera. Again, we didn't want to have a huge form where you had to fill everything out and make it painful, but on the, there's usually a little more back and forth with our production assistant when it comes to setting up a new project for billing. So then, at any point, an object can be put on hold by me, the preparator, one of the photographers, but if you put it on hold, you must tell us why. There's a field that goes in, and it says, hey, is this because it needs frame shop assistance? Do we need conservation to come in? Are we waiting for curatorial to come back on the various views that we want? Why is this on hold? So I can track the ones that are on hold and what's the holdup. Then we call it in. It gets automatically assigned to the production manager. At this point, if it is billable, we create behind the scenes a billing subtask that is a separate ticket, and that's what tracks how much we're charging to the given department for creating those billing invoices later. When it goes to in IVR and on set, it automatically gets assigned to the photographer at that point. We have a few different views. We have list views like Justyna showed. We also have the Kanban board like what Ben showed. And Kanban is basically you can move tasks along. Our preparator loves this because he's trying to track things coming in from Reg into the studio, where it is in the studio, so he can move them along the steps. And we can have these swim lanes where the highest priority ones float to this top row, and then in the middle row you have the things that are kind of normal, and at the very bottom we'll have a backlog. The photographers, they'll go through their list. They have dedicated filters that are set up of showing theirs, but then they go into a specific view, and this is completely illegible. Hopefully this will be a little more legible. I'm worrying with this screen. So this gives them all that information from TMS and the DAM. It allows them to see what existing images are in TMS, because a lot of times an ID shot may have been taken from a gallery for a new acquisition, and a lot of times curators say, I just want that ID shot, basically. So that's useful. We can also add in different people to the request. This particular should be going on set in about an hour right now. But we've had back and forth with two different people from curatorial. Conservation is involved. And so we've added multiple people into this. And they can add all kinds of comments, and all the comments are tracked. If I'm talking with a curator, it gets added to a comment. If the preparator talks with the conservator, it gets added to the comment. So when the photographer sees it, he can see all this information, including photos and such that were uploaded. Now, the people outside of IVR, they're not looking at this. They're not logged into Jira. What they're getting is a simple email chain. When the ticket's created, they get an email. They respond to that email. I post a comment. They get an email. They respond to the email. Jira grabs that comment, grabs that email as a comment in there, so that everything is captured, so that anybody who looks at it says, all right, there's no issues where you're on an email chain and somebody added you 10 steps and you're like, wait, where was I? You just look back in the comments. All right, so we're done with that. So future improvements. One goal that we have had for a while is going from a TMS object package to multiple issues, creating each object becomes it. instead of having to go through that form for 30 issues in an object package. David Garfinkel was working great on that until he got pulled away by the Met. So now we're, dealing with some IT change, people in IT, and getting them up to speed. So we've got a few challenges, but that is something that actually is doable, and we hope to roll that out possibly by the end of this year. Automated time tracking for billing. How much we're going to bill for these things, that's a grand question, and that's a little more challenging. In the dam, curators can reject an image. Usually it's because of a crop, or occasionally an image is rotated 90 degrees for things that are not as easily identifiable. Ideally, when they reject it, it'd be nice if there could be a JIRA ticket that goes right into the photographer's queue. I would like to add some steps for vetting of complex projects. Before I just call in a ticket, a lot of times I have to go back and forth with the preparator and say, hey, what do we need to do for timeline? Do we have to have conservation involved in this, et cetera? Having QA steps. And one thing that we're trying to figure out is, right now the photographer hits done, and it's done, the ticket says done, and it sends out an email saying your image will be in the dam in the next couple days. Ideally, I would like to have a QA step where I do QA and have the dam talk to JIRA, and as soon as the dam sees the image, kick back to JIRA and say close that issue automatically without having to close through things. And that would also allow us to do a rapid imaging type. When a photographer is dealing with 50 or 100 objects a day, the ratio of how much time they spend imaging and the ratio they spend in JIRA starts to become out of whack. So if we can do things where, I see that image is in JIRA, the photographer doesn't have to close it, it's just closed, that would be wonderful. Ton of thanks. David Garfinkel and Steve Moore and Ian Eckert from our TMS team were essential. Angeli is now trying to fill in and come up to speed to what David was able to do. We had brought in one outside JIRA consultant for our initial change, but going forward, we're planning maybe on an annual basis, budgeting for bringing in a consultant once a year. Find those things that we can improve and iterate, make it better. The amazing IVR team. Everybody started with at some point of, this is going to be more work, this is going to be more painful. And as I'm preparing this presentation, I'm getting people coming in my studio literally saying, I love JIRA, because going through those old forms was a pain in the butt, and our licensing, our production assistant who was dealing with all the billing, he's like, the new system, it's like he's pulling his, well, you can see he pulled his hair out, but he, trying to figure out this new system, but now his billing, he's like, journal report, it's done, no problem, and it's very easy. And I especially want to thank our curatorial guinea pigs. We appoint people in each curatorial department. And the reason I want to point this out is that we did no onboarding. We were the worst job ever of onboarding. We just said, hey, here's this new form to request an image. And they did it. And there were a few email questions along the way. And then 2 months later, we actually sat down and said, where are there things that we can improve? Are you having issues? Of course, everybody's like, I want to go from an object package to 30 issues, but other than that, because we went with that very, very simple, easy-to-use form, it just kind of worked. So all these people, maybe because I'm working with really bright, great people, but also, just having a simple form just made it easier for everyone to adopt. Thank you. So we've got 2 minutes for QA. I don't know if anyone is actually in this room afterwards, so we'll hang out until we get kicked out. But if anyone has any questions.
Who is adding metadata to the images on the ingest form? Is anyone doing that? And how is that happening? Is there like a standardized language of metadata for the images that you're using, or is it free form? I'm just wondering, we too are using JIRA for all of our ingest, and the issue that we have is that when things get uploaded to our digital asset management system, it's a mess in trying to find things because of tagging with keywords. And so I'm wondering if you're getting those keywords from the clients before the stuff is getting uploaded to the DAM or the DAM special server.
Are you asking about objects or event photography or installation?
For the whole, everything.
Okay.
Well, objects, it's coming from TMS. TMS is the authority, and for objects, we will very, very, very strongly push back. If you ask for an object and it isn't cataloged in TMS, we're 98% of the time we're going to say, no, it's got to be cataloged before we're going to even touch it.
Yeah, and I guess that's true of mine too. I'm sorry to say that. But
Yeah.
for the event photography, maybe?
I'm going to pass that question off to...
Honorary panelist.
So Mama it's not 100% done, but we're working we're using the events module in TMS now.
Okay.
So when I get a request like that, we're still in the process, but eventually, hopefully, as we have someone coming in 2 weeks, it will send an email to the TMS desk. They create an event record in there. It goes through, it gets an event ID, and basically same thing as our objects. It will pull in the data about the event. And often our events are related to an exhibition, so we put an exhibition ID in.
Okay.
And literally that pulls in all the data about the exhibition, all of the information about the event itself. And then at the end of the process, our archives are also connected now in TMS, so they actually get an email at the end because she catalogs them as individual archival things so that they can be later sort of pulled into their system as well. So it's a really quick and easy way to do it without having people have to put in a ton of data, which is what you want to avoid.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
I'm wondering within these organizational systems and also the CMS and the DAMs, if any of the institutions are using these for comp images. So a lot of times at our institution we'll have giant environmental murals that are not they're not going to be in our CMS. Or for publications we'll have comp images. And we'll need to track them. And we've been using our CMS, but I'm wondering if the JIRA or the others that have been discussed or how that's handled within each of your departments.
So for us, when we do murals, those are just production. They're like a one-off. We don't, we create large files which we archive, and that information is available in TMS. That there is a large file available, but we don't, because we don't have a DAMS right now. We store them on a RAID storage system. It's separate within the studio. For comp images, again, publications maintains when they're working on production, when they're doing color correction or proofing, they're maintaining that. And that, again, I think when we get a DAMS, that will be put in, and it'll be one of the derivatives that will be listed in the DAMS. But as of right now, they're holding on to those because obviously it's a specific ink and paper combination, and it's not going to work for other departments. And so there's no reason to kind of throw that into the mix and confuse everything. So right now, because we don't have a DAM, there's quite a bit of siloing of images. Like we have images, graphic design has images, and so those are kind of maintained in that separate field. But I think other than publication, there won't be need to hold on to like these large murals.
Well, and I think it's more to the point of restrictions, right? So we'll have press or we'll have special marketing requests, and they will need to know, okay, you need to do a panorama of this shot. So there's some way that they can look at something and know, oh, I need to do a panorama of this shot when they're
When my guys do installation views, they pretty much document all that. And again, I said because it goes through approval process, when they send out installation views, the curator will say, you know what, I would like to have this view of that mural shot again. Like, can you do a couple more of this? So that's where that kind of back and forth dialogue is really important.
All of you seem to have a mix of automation versus sort of human inputs. What sorts of things do you do to audit or sort of check for human error in the process?
Check for human error. For me, I kind of just look through all the tickets. I try to do it. I would love to say I do it every day, but every couple days I just kind of go through the queue. I also have like multiple filters within JIRA where I can say, let me see anything that has due days, let me see anything that's been sitting in JIRA for too long, and so I can go through those filters and kind of triage things that look out of whack. I have filters for saying anything that has this field is empty. so I can go through those. That's like kind of my go-to is like, if there's no photographer assigned or no studio setup type assigned, let me go through and fix those.
Yeah, I think for us, the main human errors are either they leave a field blank, at which point I bounce the order. I will not put it into production, and I call them and tell them. Or they may have put an additional number on the charge line. That's generally tends to be the, and that TMS form that we have, that's actually really good for me. I look through them and see like, well, we just photographed this like a month ago. Why are we doing this again? And so then at that point I would contact them and say, maybe they need a different view, or there might be a request from another institution that's different. So those tend to be sort of the three main issues that we have in terms of errors.
Yeah, I would echo that. Our main issues end up being things are already photographed, the accession numbers that we get are wrong and don't exist, or just sort of random due dates that don't exist, or black information. And a lot of that, because we're a small operation, they're easily solved. Wrong accession numbers are solved when we go to pull the object and go, well, that doesn't seem like a thing that exists, so call the curator really quick. And then we've been working with our DAM and our CMS to find ways to easily figure out what's got photography, and if it's somewhere along in the workflow that's not in the DAM yet. That's more of an ongoing thing, but we're working on that with some cool filters and different stuff.
And our process is pretty straightforward, and we're looking at the spreadsheet every day, so we kind of spot things right away and correct them.
Thank you.
All of these systems are so useful for a variety of practices. I mean, I think it's pretty easy to see how other museum workflows could also adopt similar tech. I know at my institution, we haven't even prototyped yet our JIRA for my department, and I already have people kind of in the wings thinking, can we expand it to these other use cases? And I'm wondering if any of you have experienced that with kind of like success then breeding, okay, now are you going to be the ones that have to unroll this whole workflow tracking system to other folks at your institutions, and how have you managed that?
We've already been in discussions. Our frame shop handles a ton of requests for unframing, framing of work, etc. We had an initial set of discussions with them. One of the heads of the frame shop is a little old school, a little bit of a curmudgeon, and not necessarily keen to change. The directors over him are like, no, we should be going for this. So there is that, but also having lost our kind of key point person for JIRA, things have kind of been put on hold. Down the road, 5 years, actually, if we had a full-time like super JIRA guru, to at the level of the consultants that we bring in, I could actually see this being rolled out to like exhibition planning and design, where you have like multiple stages and components going on. There is a ton of room for expansion. JIRA is built, or for those who aren't familiar with JIRA, it's built around software development, and we've got to do all these different bug fixes and parts that need to go into the next release of Microsoft Word or whatever, and tracking 20 different moving parts. So we are just scraping the surface with it.
So I have a question.
What do you got?
I wanted to ask you, so the consultants, how does your institution finance this kind of ongoing consult? Because I think a lot of institutions that would be an issue. So in order to get JIRA to work for you guys, how do you maintain the financing for that? Because I'm assuming they're not coming in for free.
No.
Yeah.
No. The one consultant we found, they did kind of give us their first taste at a lower price, and then we go back and say, oh, we want to have you come back, and all of a sudden the price has mysteriously jumped up a lot more than we thought it would be. So that was one issue. We do have within our departmental budget training and consulting a budget line for that. That's a limited amount. And so what we're doing going forward is working with IT, who also has an interest in doing that, saying, hey, can we do some cost sharing? Can we do some splitting? And if you do like frame shop or other departments that are interested, that's in one area where
Can you give us a ballpark idea of what an institution should expect to spend for something like that?
I mean, it depends on the level that we're looking at, but it might, I want to throw out $3,000 is for having somebody come in for not the first round. The first round was much bigger. But the next round of like here doing a tune-up each year for having them come in for a day or two, for less than a week, more than a day, it might be $3K. It was definitely closer to 10 for the first round, I think. But
I think we're getting people and
Yeah.
waiting in the wings to
All
get
right.
in this. So
Thank you.
All right,
thank you
you.
so much for coming. Any more questions? And I think maybe we can just wait outside and answer those.
Yes. Thank you.